What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast with my co-host for today, Mr. Gojira 851 himself. Thank you, sir, for being here to do a nice little spotlight on the probably forgotten creature of the kaiju world, Angurius, and got a lot to talk about with you. I'm glad you took time out to do this, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And you already saw he's showing off his Angurius figurine there, which looks kind of a lot like that guy.
Yeah, exactly like that guy.
So obviously, as I've been doing these spotlight segments on different kaiju, I wanted to touch on Angurius, and I kind of just, for some people, when I knew, like with Sentry, I knew he'd want to talk Rodan. You probably would have wanted to talk Godzilla, but most people do. But I do want to like kind of throw some wrenches into it, and I figured you'd be a good guy to sit here and talk Angurius with because it's a forgotten creature, man. It just and it's not just within the memory of people that talk about kaiju, but even Toho has sort of kind of forgotten about him too. But his history starts pretty much at the beginning with Godzilla Raids Again, and then of course other films like Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla versus Mecha, Final Wars, but we didn't hear from him again for quite a long time. I mean, there's like this gap. I think it was from '68 to 2004 before he made an appearance in Final Wars. Is that accurate? Or no, it'd be 74 as far as like live action movies. So it'd be 74 to 2004. So I don't think he was really brought up again until then. But again, now he's kind of dormant. Huh?
You're missing one, but we'll get to it.
Am I? Well, how much one am I missing?
Yeah, I'll let you get there. You want to get there? Or you want me to tell you?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Talk about it. I just was going to ask you too. Like, what was your first experience when you first saw like Angurius? Was obviously it'd probably be Raids Again. I would assume, maybe not.
Actually, no. The first time I saw Anguirus, I don't know if this really makes me a bad Godzilla fan because I was born in 1985. And I didn't see the Godzilla films in a chronological order. I actually saw Godzilla 1985 first. And then the second film I saw, well, it was Son of Godzilla, but then the third or fourth film I saw was actually Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. And then I saw Godzilla versus Gigan, where he actually was in a tag team match with Godzilla against Gigan and King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
And then I saw Raids Again, which was his first appearance in 1955. And then, strangely enough, his next appearance, I didn't see this in film until like 1996, was in Destroy All Monsters, was in 1968. And then he made a brief appearance in Godzilla's Revenge as stock footage.
Yeah.
But then he was dormant. I would have loved to have seen him in the Heisei series. I would have loved to see him reimagined in the Heisei series, like in like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 or some other film, somewhere in that area. But then they reimagined him in Final Wars. And I was very happy to see him in Final Wars. A very odd choice that they used for him, but I was still happy to see him in Final Wars. And we kind of saw him in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Not really, but kind of. We saw him
Right.
in King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
We kind of
Final
saw
Wars.
King
Yeah.
of the Monsters in concept art, and we kind of saw a skeleton that resembles him as well, but it's not really him. But then again, they're saying it is him, but it's kind of a tease. But we're still waiting to see like a full-on reinterpretation of Anguirus on the big screen again. Hopefully, in the future, we do see this spiky boy one more time. Or another time, a bunch more times. Hopefully he does come back a lot more times. One more time.
Right.
And for me.
Speaking of King of Monsters, so obviously when we talk about a lot of the kaiju, Godzilla specifically, Godzilla tends to die, come back. It's one thing he'll always come back in some form or another. But they say that these most kaiju fans and what the Anguirus from the original Raids Again died and perished. He fell into the ocean. So do we assume that King of the Monsters is kind of playing off of that? Because obviously their approach to it was Godzilla was from the atomic age. And when they showed a skeleton, we really have no backstory or origin of Angurius at that point. So do you think that's supposed to represent him from that way back time thing there?
Well, from my interpretation, the Godzilla from Raids Again is his own creature. It's another. If we're going by the 91 idea, it's its own Godzilla soar irradiated and became its own creature. Or if we're going by the 54, it's its own creature already grown into its own Godzilla. Anguirus is its own creature, like its own subspecies. It's something else that's not really good. It's its own kaiju, pretty much. I don't want to get
Right,
too.
right.
So it's its own creature that's become its own thing in the future. So there, that's how I see it. And then Anguirus that we see in the future, like in the '60s and like the '70s, and then the 2000s, it's its own thing that goes into something else. So that's my interpretation how I've seen those.
Okay.
So
So when it comes to like how you would rank him as far as your favorite kaiju, like where would he land?
well, for Anguirus,
Mhm.
he's definitely as far as like heroes and villains, or just overall.
Just overall, like
Just
you know,
overall.
because like you kind of look at it, because one thing that keeps getting brought up is, and I know we'll talk about this at length, but he kind of gets his ass kicked a lot. He's very stubborn and he's a tenacious fighter, but he tends to lose a lot. So a lot of people don't list him as one of their favorites, even though he's like one of my favorites. But
Mm.
uh just like in terms of like star power, I guess I would say.
Star power, he's got it. He's got the image. Like you see him, he's awesome. He's almost got it as much as Godzilla has it. He doesn't have like atomic breath. He doesn't have atomic pulse. He doesn't have all the powers that Godzilla does. But he's got the same image like Godzilla does, in my opinion. I think he's got like the look.
Hmm.
Um, he does get his ass kicked a lot. I'll give you that, but different writers and different artists, especially outside of the films, have given him his due. This is one comic series. I don't mean to get off on a tangent,
No,
but
that's all right.
Destroya was actually attacking a comic book convention at one point, and Anguirus actually showed up and actually fought with Destroya, and Destroya started kicking his ass all over the place. Anguirus kept on getting back up, and everyone's like, "Why is Anguirus keep getting back up? He's getting it crap kicked at him." It's like, because it's Anguirus. That's all he knows how to do: get the crap kicked at him and get back up. Eventually, they weakened Destroya. Remember, Destroya is like the face of the end of Godzilla, pretty much. He's the one that killed Godzilla in the end. They
Right.
weakened Destroy enough, and Anguirus used his spiky ball attack and actually damaged Destroya and made Destroya, retreat. And then as Anguirus was leaving, actually ran into Godzilla, and Godzilla actually nodded his head in approval of Anguirus making Destroya run off. So other people are giving Anguirus starting to get more approval nowadays than he did, back then. So as far as like ranking him, there are a lot of really good monsters, but I'd say definitely top five. As heroes, yes, definitely top five. As far as overall, I'd say top five as well. I definitely would say top five. I don't know because there's a lot of really good ones, especially there's a lot of unsung kaiju in the Godzilla franchise I really like. I'm a really big Gorosaurus fan as well, but I know he's not really accomplished anything like Anguirus has. But
Right.
I definitely say top five, maybe number three. I'd say in top five. I'd say
Okay, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Um, any dislikes about the kaiju Anguirus that you have?
dislikes. All right. Even though I like this movie, it's got its problems. I know I do like this movie. In Final Wars, I don't really particularly care for the design of Anguirus. Um, I really like the show design of Anguirus. My favorite design for Anguirus is the 68 slash 72 Anguirus. That's pretty much what this guy is, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, it's just something about the mouth and the way how his arms are. It feels like his arms are like too humanish. In Final
Yeah, I
Wars.
think yeah, I
I'm
think
sorry.
my issue is like I'm like you. The look is a little bit off, but I do like obviously the movement, the speed. He's sped up. He can move a little bit faster. He does a little bit more things. The rolly ball attack is great. Uh, but yeah, like as far as the look, it is a little bit weird in the face. Like I like it's almost weird to say, but he's cuter as that of your
Mhm.
figurines than he is in this one.
Yeah. I mean, I like him in the film. I love the rolling ball attack, and I think he's and he's ferocious. But
Hmm.
I like the look. Like if they compared the Showa with the attack power of the Final Wars, that'd be like the perfect Anguirus, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
the show is where it is, in my opinion. Like that's the only like dislike I say is just the look and design of him in Final Wars. So okay, if you had to twist my arm, that's the thing I would say.
yeah.
So.
One thing I know you probably gonna be a lot more familiar with this film like as Mothra than I am, but so I was watching Rebirth of Mothra 3 the other day. I was
Mhm.
watching Pluto and it comes on a lot. And there was a scene where obviously Ghidorah is like they're surrounded by dinosaurs,
Mhm.
T Rex and Triceratops and stuff. And so like this isn't something new. We know this. Like there is a movie with Godzilla as a dinosaur when before he gets radiated and becomes what he is, and then
Mhm.
uh, we kind of and then I think it was with Raids Again. They were insinuating that he was an Ankylosaurus.
Yes.
They were comparing him to, of course, like Rodan gets compared to the pterodon, etc. Do you think they always meant to have that relationship between dinosaur and kaiju, or is that just something that influenced it in your mind?
I like to think of it as an influence because they were saying that like Godzilla was kind of like a tyrannosaur, but the Godzilla has four fingers, not two fingers. But they're kind of using it as kind of like a basis, pretty much. So they're saying that Godzilla was like a tyrannosaur with Stegosaurus plates on its back. It's like okay, you took two different dinosaurs and put them together, pretty much. It's like okay, I see that. The ankylosaur, I get it. It's a quadruped with a big spiky ball at the end. It's like okay, but it doesn't have all like the spikes on his back. Okay, that's pretty much like a porcupine, pretty much. So it's like they're using them as like a base to kind of describe them, but it's not exactly what they are. So it's like they were just using them as like a kind of like a basis to like kind of think of like attack plans of like
Yeah,
trying to deal like the Japanese military to deal with them, but not really describe exactly what they are. So it's kind of like a little bit of both, pretty much. But they're not exactly dinosaurs, but they're just trying this way how to describe them, pretty
best way
much.
to describe it, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of simplify them.
Now, over the years, even though Angurius isn't like really uh, singled out here because they haven't really done much with Rodan as far as Toho is concerned or Mothra. But why is it you think they've kind of ignored Angurius the most out of all of them,
Ugh,
as far as like doing something else? Yeah,
that is a wonderful question. Because I remember I had this conversation with a couple other panel members, off stream a couple of times, where the film GMK was supposed to have a bunch of these monsters in it. They're supposed to have Varian or Baran. They're supposed to have Anguirus and Baragon in the film, and at the last moment, Anguirus and Varian. I call him Varian, not Baran. I call him Varian. Were actually
Baron.
at the last moment, or actually were replaced with King Ghidorah and Mothra because, from what I understand, they were quote more profitable. Which okay, money talks. I understand that, but as for a Godzilla fan, I would have loved to have seen Anguirus and Baron one more time. But I guess it comes down to money, perhaps. Um, I guess it just comes down to money. But as a fan, I would have loved to seen. I guess uh okay. Selfishly, I would have loved to see in GMK all these monsters be it there. I'm just gonna say it. Selfishly, stick them all in it. I mean, the next, not in the next film. Okay, a few films down the road, they put all the monsters in it except for Baron and Baragon. But in Final Wars, they stuck all the monsters in it. Yeah, I guess that was the way,
Mhm.
like doing like a remake of Destroy All Monsters. They stuck all the monsters in there, including Anguirus. So it's like, okay, why didn't they just do that with GMK? Maybe that would have made the movie a little too busy, but I'm a Godzilla fan. I don't care. I would have loved to see all those monsters in it, but I guess money talks. Sorry.
It's true, true. Now, obviously, I've mentioned before, like Rodan and Mothra, like over time, those particular kaiju have like adopted new powers of sorts. So like Rodan becomes the fire demon, and Mothra, of course, has like the fairy dust, and then there's like Mothra Leo and stuff like that. So w- one is like, why do you think Anguirus hasn't really gained any kind of traction in terms of evolution? Or two, what would you like to see him become like beyond what he is now?
Hmm. I don't know why he hasn't gained any powers. With Rodan, the fire powers, it's kind of like when he died in the original film. You know, they killed him with the volcano, and
Yeah,
kind of way of rebirthing him, and also how the phoenix rises from the ashes. They kind of they incorporate that with him, so he has like the fire power with him, which I think
yeah,
that's a really cool thing. And then they made it with Fire Rodan later in the Heisei series, and then also linking him to Godzilla, which I love the Heisei series, and I love that film partially because of that. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters, they gave him that as well, which okay. Um, in King of the Monsters as well, and also the Heisei series, giving Mothra the fairy dust powers, also making her the Queen of the Monsters, giving her more of like a deity power, which she's always been a deity to the people of the island as well, the islanders. So I always like the idea of her having more, godly powers as well. So that was always awesome. Now, as far as Anguirus, not really having any more powers, in the films. I know they get her some goofy things, like in video games. So he has like a sonic scream, which okay, lots of monsters have sonic screams nowadays. He has the rolling ball thing, which cool, but if the monster sees it coming, just sidestep, which is goofy. I've seen in other games where like he like can like contract and like shoot his spikes out, which on paper sounds cool, but what he like immediately has to regrow them, and it's like okay. Um, I need to watch Singular Point again. I think they gave him some really gnarly powers in Singular Point where they like made his spikes like made out of like a special metal or something in that, like his
yeah.
main edition, like where his like spikes actually can like pierce Godzilla's skin or something. So I don't know why they haven't really gone much as far as like another power like breathing fire. I guess they don't want to make him too much like Godzilla. Also, Baragon breathes fire as well. I guess this is why they didn't give really Gorosaurus anything like that as well, because they would make it, hey, kitty.
Just too much of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I guess they don't want to like repeat the same powers over and over again. Maybe to see something like not Gorosaurus, sorry, like Anguirus, like get up like on his hind legs and like fight on his hind legs, maybe like something like that, or
I was thinking maybe they could do something like almost like a tortoise shell type of defense, like to like if he's being attacked, you got kind of like this. You probably wouldn't see it, but sort of like a golden shield that would come over his armor. Make
okay,
it tougher to penetrate his defenses. Like that'd be kind of like his biggest thing is just able to take a lot of punishment, which he does anyway, most of the time anyway. But you know,
okay, yeah, okay, I like that.
what do you think of a couple of these concept arts? This one is apparently for about feudal Japan.
Nice. Okay. I dig it. They really went more into the ankylosaurus, with the spiked tail end as well.
Yeah,
I like it. They're getting more radical with the spikes as well. That definitely looks more like a Millennium design. Really, because with the Millennium design, they really made Godzilla's dorsal plates and his skin more radical. Spikes and everything. That looks something that I dig it. I would
yeah.
like to see that.
And I know this is kind of like the one that I have on the thumbnail, but I don't know if this was MonsterVerse's initial plans or whatever. But I'd like, oh, that's pretty sweet.
I like
It's
that.
very similar to what's going on with the original look.
Yeah, yeah. It's like they're just jazzing up the Showa design. I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So overall, like, what would you think is going to be his legacy as a kaiju? Like, do you think he's ever going to get like another movie or another appearance? I mean, obviously, I keep hoping that Legendary finds a way to like insert him or a new version of him into either the Monarch show or even a future movie because I know we got at least one more movie coming, but I don't know what they're going to do with that yet.
Um, hopefully Legendary is able to do something with him. Hopefully Toho does something with him. As far as Legendary is concerned, I don't know if I would want Monarch to do something with him because Monarch is a show and it is just on Apple Plus. I don't know the numbers for the show, how it did on the streaming sites and all that other stuff. I don't know what the numbers were like on that, so I don't know the viewership. So offhand, I know might have done Gangbusters. Everybody watched that show. I know I watched that show like half a year after it already aired, so I pretty much just marathoned after it. So I don't
Yeah.
know how that would have done, with their budget and stuff like that. So I'd rather save Anguirus for like a movie because all the big Godzilla fans, they'd love to see Anguirus on the silver screen. And I would
Yeah.
love to see Anguirus on the silver screen. I would love to see Godzilla fight Anguirus on the big screen. I'm not trying to pick on Monarch, by the way. I liked what I saw in Monarch, especially like the big cliffhanger ending with Kong, Godzilla fighting the Ion Dragon, plus all the little tiny Monarch monster thingies as well. Russell
Yeah.
Crowe is awesome. His sons are blah 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 blah. I'm not gonna go completely into Monarch. It was a fun show. But I would love to see, Anguirus in like a full like in a silver on the silver screen. Like he's like another monster like in the Hollow Earth that gets woken up after this whole fight with Scar King and all the other stuff. I like to see the full thing. In my opinion, for Toho, I would have gone with Anguirus as the next monster to fight Godzilla in Godzilla -2 or Godzilla +1 or whatever the next math equation is for the sequel. Okay, I'm not making fun of Toho. Okay, it's just me trying to play a little joke. Okay, I love that film. Okay, but in my opinion, if we're gonna re-go with Godzilla and we're restarting the franchise, you can't go any further without bringing this guy back. Okay, I love Biolante. Hedra is fine. I like Hedra. Not the biggest fan of Hedra. Okay, I like Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. It's an acquired taste. I have to be in the right
Very
mood.
acquired.
Okay, it's like Ridley Scott's Alien. I have to be in the right mood to watch it. Okay,
Yeah.
I love that film, but I can't just pop that movie on and watch it any day of the week. I have
But
to
you
be in the
can
right
with
mood.
aliens.
Okay, but like, okay, so Anguirus, that's where I would have gone with a sequel. Okay. Now I know they have the whole thing with the radiation in the neck thing. I know they have a plan, but in my opinion, this is where it should have gone. Hopefully they kind of tease Anguirus. I might be wrong, and they are going with Anguirus, but we shall see. But in my opinion, Anguirus was
Recent talks or gossip has been that they may end up going raids again. Like when it first finished with -1, I remember somehow Yamazaki saw my tweet on Twitter, and I said, I'd really love for you to do Godzilla raids again after this to see what you do with Angurius, and he liked my post. So I don't know what that really means, but the other thing I said, if they don't do that, then Biollante makes the most sense. But then most people think it's going to be Hedora. But I'm with you. I'm not the biggest Hedora fan. And I think you'd have to really wow me with his design because I don't like the old design at all. So
um, I mean, I do, but I again, I'd be in the right mood for it, and maybe they'll knock my socks off with it. I'm not saying I wouldn't like it. I'm not saying I wouldn't love it. I just the original one, just Anguirus, come on.
yeah, I think that would be a great like kind of like bookend,
Yeah.
movie to the first one. So that'd be a lot of fun, I think. So if they were to do the next MonsterVerse film, what would you like to see in terms of just like a plot design with him? Like, is it just more just Middle Earth stuff or Hollow Earth, or would you have him introduced in another way?
Oh. I would kind of make him look well. Oh, you really put me on the spot there. I almost said something very silly.
There's
Um.
nothing silly on this channel. Nothing silly.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, you know how Doug is on all fours?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Anguirus is on all fours. So kind of make Anguirus kind of look like Godzilla, just a pinch. Not exactly like Godzilla, just kind of make him look a little bit. So they're almost like family a little bit, kind of almost like a family, like a sibling rivalry, pretty much, like brother versus brother in a way. Not
Okay.
exactly brother versus brother. They look a lot like each other to the point
Yeah,
where when
kind of like
the
a blood relation, but not necessarily the same species, but very close.
it's like when Godzilla's up on Earth doing his thing, like he wakes up from the Coliseum and he wakes up like I like to see Godzilla power down from his pink form. Okay, I like his evolve. Don't get me wrong, I love his evolved form. In fact, I just got something in the mail that I'm gonna be unboxing later and uploading to the channel later.
Ooh,
But
nice.
I like to see him power down from his evolved form because he was really powerful in his evolved form. But then all of a sudden we start hearing tremors throughout the world, and all of a sudden up comes Anguirus. And he kind of looks like Godzilla a little bit, but he resembles a lot of Anguirus as well. And all of a sudden they look at each other from across the way. And you have like that dun 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 like noise like hit. And it's like then they fight each other and it's like it's kind of like Godzilla raids again, but also it's like so it's like something like that. So
Yeah, here's another interesting thing because they said that when I was reading a little bit that they believe that Angurius's origins was from Siberia, which is a naturally cold area.
mhm.
I've always kind of looked at him as more of a tropical creature, and that's usually how he's portrayed. Like Monster Island generally isn't cold or anything, at least most of the time. But could he have a relation or a semblance of connection to Shimo in some
Okay,
way?
all right. I like that. Hmm.
Just because they both are kind of like similar in body build, and even though Shimo is more ice, but considering that whole Siberia approach or origins of what they believe Angurius came from, that's something that kind of popped in my head. So didn't know if you would agree with that assessment or not.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah. Huh. Never even thought about making. What about Anguirus with ice powers? Yeah, but yeah. You think Anguirus with ice powers?
It probably could work if you're let's say Shima was initially looked like Angurius by birth, and then just over time the ice became more of like her color and everything like that.
Yeah.
So maybe when they're born, they aren't like totally ice born. They're just kind of like regular pinkies, we call like mice, and
Okay.
then as they gain more power, almost like powering up like Godzilla or any other creature, they start evolving into this ice creature.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
Let's run with it.
Yeah.
I have no idea,
Yeah.
but I thought it sounded kind of cool, just because of
Yeah.
the Siberia connection, anyway. Well, I don't have much more. There wasn't a whole lot to cover on him other than the films he was in. I will say this though, whatever if they ever do him any more movies or put him back into things, I hope they give him a little bit more chances at, as you would say, like when you mentioned the Destroyer comic, like give him a little bit more fighting chances. 'Cause most of the time we see him, he's grabbing on the Ghidorah's tail and falling, or getting his mouth ripped open by Mecha Godzilla, and it's like you don't know how traumatic that was for me as seeing that as a kid. I was like, no, not Angurius, no. So like I just want to see them get a little bit better at giving that guy his due because he needs it. Final Wars was probably his best bet, and of course Godzilla made a fool of all three of them. But
Mhm.
uh, that was still fun to see that he was able to at least do something.
Whatever you do, don't watch the Japanese version of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in 1974.
I probably did. I think why? What is the vast difference? Because like
That
I'm
scene's longer and
I
more
probably saw
violent.
it then because it was in the theaters, and I used to go on a matinee on Saturdays. My dad would drop me off, and I don't know, I must have been like 8 or 9 when that happened. Of course, the movie had been out for about 4 or 5 years, but Yeah,
Okay.
I remember it being pretty brutal, like blood on the dripping on the ground, and it was pretty nasty. So
I
they might
remember.
have cut it. They may have cut it down, like because I think Pluto's playing it a lot, but I don't remember. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they did cut it down.
Yeah, the
Because
version I watched, it was only a few seconds long, and it's like God, like Mechagodzilla just started and it just stopped. It's like, oh, that's not so bad.
yeah,
And then I watched the Japanese version. I'm like, oh, jeez, look what he did. His
yeah,
mouth is
he's like pulling out the Kong like snake thing. He's like, and I thought it was dead, man. He's like, nope, I gotta go. My jaw's fucked. I gotta leave.
Angurius is like, okay, you win. All right, I think I'm done. All right, I'm going back to bed.
Crawls back in his hole.
Yeah. I call my insurance company. Okay, see, they'll fix this.
Well, any final thoughts on Anguirus?
He's awesome. And bring him back.
That's pretty simple. Yeah, I agree. Like, there's no way around it. I think he deserves another shot at something. I mean, he'll never make an origin movie about him, which I would still love. I mean, I still hope MonsterVerse does Rodan and Mothra, but I'll never get it. But I still want it, so bad because it's just these kaiju, especially with the main ones, always have like the possibilities are endless. Like the MonsterVerse kind of opened up the whole world to all the rest of these kaiju. Like when the critics were reading King of the Monsters, they were like, "We don't get it. We don't know who these monsters are." It's like, that's because you're not fans. The rest of us, we know who they are, so it makes sense. We're happy. We're excited. And so I'd like to see origin stories. Even if Toa just came back out and started doing stuff like that, it'd be great. But
Yeah. It's like, hey guys, remember all those years I had to sit there and listen to you talk about Twilight and Harry Potter? Yeah, now you can sit there and listen to me talk about Godzilla. There.
yeah, it's our turn.
Yeah.
It's the age of the kaiju now.
Yeah, it's like that scene from Lost Boys when the one guy was pushing David up against the wall. My turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know you said you got an unboxing coming up. Anything else on your channel that you're going to be doing?
Uh, Nah. Well, I got two unboxings. I don't know where the other one is, but I've got the other one sitting right here. So I'm gonna do this one like probably later tonight or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
As for me, most of the shit's going to happen next weekend around Friday and Saturday. I've got a cinematic synergy I'm doing with Kevin Lambert. We're going to be reviewing Savage Dawn. I can't remember the year. It's the 80s with Lance Henriksen. Then I'm going to get together with Rick Meyer to do another episode of Action Film Autopsy to fill in for Samurai Guy. And then Saturday, at 2 p.m. Eastern, I'll be getting with Jedi Grand Vale as we go and do a spotlight on Jet Jaguar from one of his favorite movies, Godzilla versus Megalon. And then later in the evening, again, I'll be with Kevin Lambert. I'm not sure if you're going to be there or not, but we're going to be doing a review of the movie Tarantula from 1955 on Kevin's channel. So
I'll get my boot.
a lot of cool shit coming up. But again, thank you, sir, for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And for the rest of you, please go to his channel, like his content. He's got a lot of cool features, a lot of cool things about Godzilla. He does some gaming over there. And you can like my channel, subscribe if you want. We enjoy the support that you give us, so appreciate it much. And thank you again, Goji. For the rest of you, yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you later on the Metal Time Radio podcast.